Welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to, again with multiple personality disorder, I'm going to show you that you can make a simple stage 1 light prefab. So what is a stage 1 light prefab? It's basically something that has the functions so you can quickly do your work without dragging and dropping multiple assets, trying to put them together in a predefined prefab without the options you need. Okay, but that's basically what we're going to do. So let's move forward to a fresh blueprint for you guys. So to do that, let's go right click, blueprint class, actor, call it light prefab, whatever. Now in our case, we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to do similar stuff. We're going to go to meshes, we're going to go candlestick, and we want this one, and we want this one, and we want a candlestick that looks like this. That's the first step we're gonna do. We're not gonna add everything at once because it gets a bit confusing. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to turn off and turn off something. Now how do you do that? I wonder as well. We are going to go to the construction script. In the construction script, we're going to drag out and we are going to search for sequence. And we're going to search for branch. And we're going to delete sequence and add that later because I forgot we need to keep it simple. So we have a branch. A branch is a true or false Boolean condition. So basically, if we do something, we want to say, hey, I want to have, we want to rename this, by the way, to candlestick. Candlestick. And let's rename this to, is that a big, small stand? And then I think this was the big stand. Let's call it big stand. Is it actually the biggest stand, or did I drag out the one that would be too easy? Yes, I did. I actually want this one. So let's put this here, attach, delete the big stand, and rename this to big stand. There we go. Now, what we are trying to do, first thing we want to do is actually push this over to 36. 36 is our default state. So let's click compile and save. Go back to the construction strip, and basically what we're trying to do is say, when do we want a big stand and when do we want a small stand? So let's move this away and let's go to content and let's go to light prefab and let's just see what we're starting with. So our starting point is good, that's the default, but we don't need all of those informations to be incorrect now, do we? So we need a condition. Let's make a Boolean, call it small stand true. Okay, so if we tick this on, also let's make sure it's public, otherwise it will not show up in the editor to click on. I'm going to turn it off just to make sure you see the example if you're new to this. And we are going to drag the small true over there, get small stand true. Then from the true, we are wanting to say small stand, and we want to set visibility. I'm skipping over a couple of steps on purpose just to be a bit more thorough this time, in case you've been skipping some of my videos. Okay, so we have set visibility. Let's try it out. So we're going to see two of the problems I already told you. Okay, problem one. How do I do it on and off? There's no button. Okay, let's solve that very quickly. Let's make this public. And that's one problem solved, right? Maybe. Okay, great. I click it. I can actually see that it's turning off. Interesting. So when I'm wanting it to be on, it's off because it's already on. Okay. What does that mean? Well, it means we need to go to the small stand, scroll down, and we want it initially to be invisible, because when we drag it out, we don't want it to be visible. We want it to be off. And now you see it's working, or it's not, because we forgot one more thing. And if you paid attention, you would know the answer. We need to go here, and we will need to click new visibility set to true, because now the default is off, so this needs to be inverted. And we want to say it's true. We want the light stand to be on. There we go. Problem solved. We're getting through this, aren't we? Okay, so next thing, what are we wanting to do? We want to hide the big stand. Okay, so let's just copy paste this very quickly to speed up the video. Let's drag the big stand out. Let's target ourselves, like connect both of them, because if we don't connect them, it's not going to continue the process. And we want to turn the visibility off, right? Because it's already on, if you remember. So now, problem solved. But now we have a new problem. That light isn't moving. And now you could do what most people have seen do. They copy paste the candlestick and they just do set visibility. But we want to optimize this, and we don't want to do that. So we want to keep the amount of mesh information the same. So we are just going to do set relative location. Somewhere here. Let's do that. And I could have done big stand. No, we want the candlestick actually. Undo candlestick, and here we want to target ourselves, and we want the location to be what? Well, I already know, but just to show you a method of finding out, let's go to the viewport. Now we know this is already on 36, but we want to know where to move it down. So let's click on class default to access our Boolean and click it. So now we're clicking it, and you can see it's moving down to where it should be. Let's have a check. It says 0, 0. Let's compile it. And let's go to class default again. And let's have a check if it is working as we want. So I turn it on and I turn it off. Now, you might leave it there, but the reality though is it's quite inside of it. So if we were to move this candlestick a little bit up, you could see it's not actually correct. Okay, not actually correct. So that means we still want to be sure. So let's turn that on, let's click it, and let's just move it slightly upwards. Let's move it slightly up, but it's not letting me, because in the construction I have tagged this on and it's forcing me to do it. So we don't want to be forced at the moment. So let's drag it up and let's compile it and see how it goes. Went a bit too far. Let's type in 6 and let's do maybe 6 is okay. But then we have a second problem. It's too big because we're not changing the candlestick. We could do it. You can do it on your own as a practice, but I'm gonna show you the simple version for now, so you're not overwhelmed. I'm just gonna scale it instead, because that's also good to know. So we're gonna not compile it. We are not gonna do anything. We're gonna undo that, and we're gonna put that up to 36, as its original was there. And let's double check it all looks fine. Great. So here, now we're gonna connect this. So when the small stand is on, we want this to be around 6 in location. But we also know we need to set scale, set relative scale. Let's do that for the candlestick. This time I'll show you how to do it this way. Okay, and we know it's going to be 0.5, and it's relative because we are only changing the relative scale based on what it is already. So we're not adding anything on top of it, or we're not removing anything on top of it. It's basically based on what we already set. Now, let's do a quick test. Let's click on the prefab. Let's do, boom. There we go. We scaled it, we moved it. Okay, two things missing. Now, if you're getting the hang of it, it's almost identical, more or less. We want to drag in a flame. So let's do that. And we want the flame to move as well. But before doing that, let's lock the false. So on the false, I want everything to be inverted, because when people move the candlestick or do some changes, we want to at least control the candlestick. That is always going to be on top of where it should be from the beginning. You could allow them to move them around, and you probably should, and that's fine. So basically, one way is just to invert everything. So I'm just going to invert it. And then I guess this would be not correct. So this would be 1. Because we don't want it to be, because it's the big one, and we know this is supposed to be 36. Let's try it out. Yep. So that's kind of locks that kind of settings in. Now for the flame and the light, I could show you the easy way, but then there's no learning. So I'm going to show you the other way, because you need to learn how to do other things too, especially if you're going to make this complicated. But in theory, you could just tick this to the candlestick. So in theory, you could just, so this is the default, and let's see how we want it to be. Like, I don't know, something like this. In theory, you could stick it to just the candlestick, and it will follow the candlestick, or it should. Let's actually test it. You could do that, you know, and it looks fine. There's no problem with that. So that's the simple version, which I know in a sense you probably could do and should do, in terms of keeping the construction script relatively cheap. But if you didn't want to do it, and I'm not going to show you, but I can show you here. Essentially, you're just doing the same thing. You're setting the relative location for the flames, and you're scaling the flame, and you can do the same thing for the light. But because I want the video to be short, I'm just showing you the repetitive parts. But let's do the same thing for the light. Let's do a point light. Let's add a point light, and let's connect that to the flame. Now you obviously might want to put it a bit differently, and you might want to set the temperature to like 3400 or something, and you might keep the default to 150, and you might want to have a candela. You might have 2 candela, and then according to that you might want to place your light accordingly. Click compile and save. Okay, so now you pretty much made a very quick and simple prefab. Now my first version is doing the same thing, but I am securing the position. So if someone does touch it, essentially I don't want people to touch it, so I'm kind of making sure they stay where they are, and I've kept it separate also. And that's also because if for some reason someone wants to move the light and cheat, they can do that. But in this example, you're kind of making it foolproof, I suppose, and locking things a little bit, but you can still move things around. Now, that said, you might want to access things for the point light, so let's do that. Let's do a point light. Let's do set attenuation, radius. Let's do set intensity, and let's do cast shadow. Okay, just to give a quick example, let's connect this one to this. Let's connect this one to this, and now we can do a sequencer. And what we can do, we click this. Then the first thing we want to do is we want to go through all of the meshes in the settings. Once we're done with that, we then want to check what setting we have for this. And let's see what we're missing. So we go here, and you can see it's all missing here. So why is that? Same principles that I've tried explaining, but this time we're going to right click and we're just going to do promote to variable, and promote to variable. Then quickly we're going to call this radius, or if you really want to be specific, you do light radius, and then you do light intensity, and then we do car shadow, or we do this and then we undo, and then we make sure we're actually here. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so we do this. Now remember, you need to expose this, otherwise we won't see them anywhere. Okay, so you expose those, and let's also do one more thing. Let's do setting for light intensity, setting for a light radius, setting for car shadow light. Okay, and I'm gonna compile and save, and let's just see if it's all there. So we have all of them there. So we can do is false true, setting for light radius, setting for light intensity, setting for car shadow, and basically let's make sure this is in fact on 150 and this is in fact on 2. So let's just make sure we do that. So we have 150, light intensity is set to 2 candelas, and cast shadow we want it to be on all the time as default. Okay, so now you can see it's on all the time, and you can turn it off if you want to. Okay, so there you have it. You have a very simple, quick way of doing lighting prefab. It does get more complicated, but this is just one way of doing it. This is the other way of doing it, where you control more of these assets and you organize this differently. And this, you have a different organization, and here I've basically saved up some of the calculation by not calculating the position of these, but simply making a hierarchy, and you can do more and more stuff using the same principles and exposing different things the way you want it. So you can expose more complicated settings as needed, which you probably would recommend doing as you go. So hopefully that was useful. Thank you for watching, and as usual, like, subscribe, leave a comment if you want more complicated stuff or more other things that you want to learn. Thank you, have a good day.